welcome everybody. We're going to get started. My name is Lynn Rose. I'm the Environmental Health and Safety Consultant for the district. I've been with the district for 11 years, and I worked with the Safety Department, the Office of School Safety, and the Human Resources Department to put this program together for you. And we're very excited. We know we have some new folks and some people that have been here forever or for a while. And so this program is a little more extensive than probably some of the training you've had in the past. And I want to just tell you a little bit about it. Is based on a national program which Massachusetts has adopted. It's through the Mass Department of Transportation. It's called the Safe Routes to School program. And so we have taken the information that they have. We have a video. We have complemented it with procedures from Human Resources, from the Safety Office. So Worcester Public Schools has made this program our own. So we are going to go over things. We're going to give you an opportunity to ask questions at the end. We have provided a couple of comprehensive things for you to work with. So everything that's in the training, we're going to cover a lot of information right now. But everything and more is in this handbook. So if you have a question, you can't remember certain things like where to get information, how to do a certain procedure, everything is in here. And there's also contact information for if you have questions. We want to provide you with support going forward as well as the training today. Another piece of what we're doing today is a quiz. So this is not I gotcha. This is really to help you think about what you want to think about while we're working today. Like, what are the key things as a crossing guard that you need to pay attention to is in this quiz. So go ahead, take a look at it, fill it out as we go, and at the end we'll go over it. So I'm just going to get us started, and then we have several speakers today. We're fortunate. We are also working with, so we've got the Human Resources Department. We have the video from the state, which we will complement, and we will emphasize some of the key points. Robert Prezella is the director of the School Safety Office. He'll be presenting. And then we're really fortunate we have the City of Worcester Department of Public Works and Traffic, Operations and Sanitation, Department of Public Works and Parks will be here to talk about, for us to understand about these signals that we're working with and pushing the buttons and what to expect and what the traffic markings mean and what school zones mean. And the Worcester Police Department will be here as well. And at the end, I'll go over the quiz with you. So basically what we want to cover is, as a Worcester school employee, what is it that you need to know and do procedurally, and where would you get information, and who do you talk to, like which department does what. And then we have what we call a crossing guard code of conduct, which we'll go into, which is how we need to act when we're on the street and interacting with both drivers and pedestrians and students. And then we don't go into this a lot. Maybe at the end I'll emphasize a couple points, but it's really important to understand like kind of child development, that children systems are much less mature than our systems, and they don't see and hear as well. They're more impulsive. And so the video will go into that a little bit, but we may want to talk about that a little bit more because that's really some of what you're paying attention to. We're going to talk about what's requirements in terms of safety gear to protect you and so that motorists can see you. We're going to talk, there's different school crossings, across the city. And depending on where you are, it's going to be a certain kind of crossing. Does it have a signal? Does it have a yield sign? Does it have a stop sign? And based on that is what the procedures are going to be to cross the students. So we want to talk about the types of school crossings and then the basic crossing techniques. And then Rob is going to kick in and talk about the safety issues and emergencies and how to handle those and what to do on a day-to-day basis. And then the traffic department will come in. Jim will talk about traffic safety in school zones and using the pedestrian signals. And then I'll just wrap up with a quiz. We'll have time for questions. And then again, we want to make sure that whatever you need, whatever questions we can't answer today, we will give you emails for who to talk to follow up. So I'm going to turn this over to Teresa.
Good afternoon. I'm Teresa Reichert, Director of Human Resources. Thank you all for coming off of your summer vacations and joining us this morning. This is a very informative session for both veteran crossing guards and new crossing guards. Do I have, by a show of hand, any new crossing guards that haven't done the crossing before? Welcome, welcome, excellent, perfect, good. You'll find this very informative, and for those who've been with us, you'll find a lot of good information in it as a refresher. So, crossing guards provide an essential service to the Worcester Public Schools community. The goal of the program is to protect you as a crossing guard, as well as to protect everyone using guarded crosswalks. The methods to achieve this goal is to equip, train, support, and supervise you to enable you to do your job safely and effectively. So this program, the Crossing Guard program, is managed in conjunction with the Human Resource Office, the School Safety Office, in collaboration with the Worcester DPW and the Worcester Police Department. The Human Resource Department, many of you, your first interaction as a crossing guard was with the Human Resource Department. You were contacted by our office, most likely by Sarah Rivera, who's here today too. We were the ones that processed your new hire information. You got your hire letter from us. It gave your school location where you'd be the crossing guard. Also at our office, you pick up your sign and your vest. So we can go through that a little bit more with you later. But everyone is going to be equipped with a sign and a vest, and those are at Human Resources. Human Resources, can you go back just one?
Sorry, yeah.
Please notify us if you have any changes of address or phone number during the year. It's really important for us to be able to contact you. With your new hire paperwork, we've sent you information on how to get your Worcester Public School email account up and running. It's very important that you do this. For those of you who've been with us for a while and need a refresher, we can help assist you get your Worcester Public School email up and running. That's how we communicate with everybody in the district. So we do ask that you do maintain that. We also hire substitutes at Human Resources. So if you have a friend or a family member or someone that you've spoken to that said, hey, I would sub for you if you can't go that day, that's great. But they need to come through Human Resources and get processed, all right? So you can have that person contact Human Resources and let us know that they're interested in being a substitute, and we will process them as a substitute crossing guard that you can utilize, when you need to. Obviously, you'll loop your principal in, but that'll be that person who's been identified, who's cleared through the system to be able to do this and also be provided with this information as well. We also manage workers' compensation. If anyone is injured during their time on duty, you want to report that to the principal, and you can also report that to Human Resources as well. And again, we provide the equipment, stop, paddle, and vest. At the end of today, we'll get a count if anyone needs any more materials or equipment to make sure you have that for the start of the school year. Timesheets. Every week, a timesheet will be completed and sent to payroll, all right? Each school handles the time sheet process a little differently. Sometimes you'll talk to the secretary, sometimes they'll have you sign it in a book. Each school has established a process in which they record your time. The timesheets are to accurately report the days that you work. On the days that you don't work, you wouldn't want to record anything there, as you wouldn't be paid for that day that you didn't work. We also process resignations. If by any chance you need to resign from your position, please give us as much notice as you possibly can. Obviously, we understand things happen, but you want to let your principal know, and you also want to let Human Resources know so we know that there's a vacancy there, all right? And you also would want to return any equipment you have, most likely the signs. The signs are a little bit more durable than the vests, but we ask that you return whatever you have. In general, for those that you are veterans here, you know this. For those of you who are new, you are provided with reasonable assurance of reemployment at the end of every vacation year, every vacation or school vacation period. So for example, after winter break, you have reasonable assurance to come back to your exact same position after February break, April break, and summer. Therefore, it's unlikely that you'd be eligible for unemployment. We get that question a lot. Am I eligible for unemployment? Well, the Worcester Public Schools does not make the final decision who's eligible or not. I can just tell you what I've seen previously, that if you have reasonable assurance of reemployment, you're not that likely. However, if you believe that you're entitled or you qualify for unemployment, feel free to file a claim, and the Department of Unemployment Assistance will make that final decision. As we discussed, the Worcester Public Schools Safety Office assists with safety issues and emergencies, coordinates with the city's police and traffic departments on crossing guard and traffic-related issues, and provides the traffic calming devices. Mr. Pizzella will go through more of that later on in the presentation. Who is your direct supervisor? Everyone, who do I report to? The principal. The principal is going to be your direct supervisor. All your reporting goes to the principal. Any issues, questions, problems, etc., everything goes to the school principal. They're your key contact, all right, to report any safety concerns, emergencies, issues with the children or drivers. The principal will let you know where they want you to cross at their school, because there's multiple, sometimes a couple different places of entry for the school children. So they'll let you know where you should report for arrival and dismissal. They'll also track your work time and absences, and they'll answer any questions that you have over and above what we've discussed here about your responsibilities. And the principal's focus is how it goes at that particular school. All right, how to get information. The Worcester Public Schools website has a wealth of information on it. I encourage all of you to check out the Worcester Public Schools website at one time or another. It advises you of current events that are going on, any notices that need to go out. It's super important to activate, again, your city email address. If you go to the Worcester Public Schools webpage, there's a departmental list of human resources, and even under human resources, you'll find information on how to set your Worcester Public Schools email. There's also benefits that you're entitled to as a Worcester Public Schools employee that include the Employee Assistance Program. It's a really great resource. Additional information is on our website. It's for matters, everyday stress, elderly parents, sick child. Anytime you need some support, this is a no-cost service that you can tap into for support. Also on the website, you'll find the school calendar. The school calendar is very helpful to take a look at, so you know when the school vacations are going to be, when the Monday holidays are going to be, when you don't have to report for work. That is posted on our website as well. And then you'd want to check with your principal for any other detailed information about happenings at that school. All right. So today, everyone was given a crossing guard handbook. There's a lot of information in there, but there's also a lot of illustrations in there as well. We're going to go through many of the things today through the video and the different kinds of speakers, but it's a good reference for you to refer to anytime you might have a question or concern or need additional information. In this, you'll find information about communication, notification and reporting, your role as a Worcester Public School employee, what to wear, what tools to use, crossing guard code of conduct, the limitations of children as pedestrians, traffic regulations, crossing types, and your shift.
So, yeah,
Go ahead.
I just want to say, so what this part is, so that's more like administrative. This part here this is your work practices. How do I cross the kids? What do I do in an emergency? So this is where you would go if like you had questions about how you're supposed to proceed in the particular kind of crosswalk that you have, the kind of intersection that you have. So the first part of that handbook is really administrative, and this is really how you do it. Okay.
So we have the next two slides are the do's and don'ts, similar to the code of conduct for crossing guards. Do arrive on time to your post. That is critical. Notify the principal when you're going to be absent. Do remain standing at your post for the duration of your shift. Only use a cell phone in an emergency and never while crossing children. You'd be surprised from time to time we may get calls from the public and they'll say something like, the crossing guard at this location, I saw them on their cell phone. So when you're out there, you're a representative of the Worcester Public Schools and the public is watching. So please don't use your cell phone unless it's in an emergency situation and never while crossing children. Don't leave your post during your shift. If a family emergency or something arises where you do need to leave your shift, you need to call your principal immediately and make sure you have coverage. Don't be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Don't smoke, use tobacco products, vape, drink, or eat during your shift. Don't use an umbrella or carry anything that prevents you from using your hands. Don't use headphones or a portable radio. Don't be reading anything. Don't sit in your car, and don't allow a child to sit in your car either. Don't put a student into their vehicle, and don't physically touch students. Work schedule and absences. All right, so the principal of your school will let you know what the procedure is for reporting to duty. Some schools, I've surveyed many of the principals, and some schools have told me they ask for you to go into the office. Some will accept a text or a call if you're kind of at a farther location. So make sure at the beginning of the school year, you check in with your principal and ask them how they expect you to report your reporting to work, okay? Generally, the reporting time is 30 to 45 minutes or so prior to the start of school, and then we ask that you remain at your post for about 20 minutes after the start of school. Again, the principals will advise you on the specifics. They're the most familiar with the community that goes to that school and will be able to provide you with additional information on that. For your afternoon shift, again, your principal will let you know how early they need you to report at your post. Whether or not you need to sign in the afternoon, the principal will give you guidance on that. Be at your post at least 15 minutes prior to the end of the school day. For my surveying of principals, that seemed to be pretty typical, between 10 and 15 minutes prior to when the bell rings, so you're there and ready for the children to be dismissed. Remain on your duty at least 20 minutes or so after the end of the school day. Again, I can't stress how important it is. Please check in with your principals at the start of the school year and ask them how they expect, what they expect. Where do they want you to cross? What time do you need to be there? How should I let you know if I'm going to come in? How should I let you know if I'm going to be absent? Communication is key. Delayed openings and early dismissals. When schools are opened later than usual due to inclement weather, crossing guards should be on duty at the newly scheduled time. You do not need to report at your post during the delay. So you'll adjust your reporting time, and that's why it all hinges on how many minutes before the start of school, how many minutes after the start of school or before afternoon dismissal. So you'll just know from that time when you're supposed to report during delayed. School cancellations, it's your duty to check for cancellations. Obviously they're posted on many media outlets these days. We also have Connect Ed. They send voicemails or messages to your phone. That's why it's super important if you change your phone number or something during the year, you let us know so we can program that into the system. Planned school closures, like I said, those will be notated on the school calendar, so you want to familiarize yourself with that. And absences, when you're going to be absent for any reason, you must notify the principal before the start of your assigned hours with as much notice as possible. Okay, and with that, we're going to segue into the video.
So this, again, this video is made by the Department of Transportation in Massachusetts. There's one thing that we'll talk about at the end about how to signal students that the Worcester Public Schools does differently.
Walk across the street. She reminds me to look both ways. He helps us get to school. She helps me cross the street. He keeps me away from the curb. My crossing guard reminds me to walk my bike across the street and not like pedal across the street. She helps keep me safe.
Hi, I'm Patty Leavenworth, Chief Engineer of the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. As you can hear from the children we interviewed, crossing guards are very important members of the school community. We are very grateful to crossing guards across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts who work diligently to keep our children safe on their way to school. This video illustrates some of the critical responsibilities and concerns for school crossing guards. It can be a challenging job and is tougher than most people realize. You might be faced with inclement weather, unpredictable conditions, and unpredictable pedestrians. We want to provide you with regulations and tactics to prepare you for this vital position. Thank you again for taking on this essential role in your community. Your work reinforcing good crossing procedures helps children develop habits and skills that will allow them to be active and safe pedestrians throughout their lives. Children count on you every day, and you are being entrusted to keep them safe on their way to school. Some important traits for a crossing guard are dependability, professionalism, ability to perform job tasks, clear and courteous communication skills, good judgment, and capability to recognize potentially dangerous traffic situations. Crossing guards help children of all ages and their parents navigate difficult crossings. Young children especially may not have the ability to make safe crossing decisions. They can be easily distracted or impulsive and may not be aware of impending dangers. There are many unsafe driving behaviors that crossing guards must be aware of and prepared for. Drivers may not be paying attention to pedestrians and bicyclists. They may be distracted by their cell phone, music, or other passengers. They may not realize that they need to stop at a crosswalk or that they are blocking visibility for another driver. They may turn without looking first. It is important to understand how traffic is controlled and to feel comfortable about making decisions, as each crossing location is unique. There are some important federal standards, laws, and regulations you should know. The Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, known as the MUTCD, is issued by the Federal Highway Administration. It includes federal laws and standards for crossing guard responsibilities and equipment. Safety equipment improves your visibility to drivers and helps keep you and pedestrians safe. The MUTCD specifies the federal requirement that retroreflective safety vests and stop paddles are to be used by all crossing guards. An American National Standards Institute 2 or 3 retroreflective safety vest or jacket with a zipper is required, as it makes you more visible to children and to drivers. On cold or rainy days, it is essential to wear your safety vest on the outside of your clothing so that you remain visible. Vest must be fully zipped so drivers can see you from all directions. The stop paddle is the primary hand signaling device and is a critical piece of equipment. There are exact specifications for the stop paddle: an octagonal shape with a red background and a white border, the word "stop" on both sides in white uppercase letters at least 6 inches high, at least 18 inches in size, retroreflectorized or illuminated when used during hours of darkness. It is important that you have complete control of your stop paddle and a free hand as well. On rainy days, bring a rain jacket rather than an umbrella. Umbrellas may obscure the stop paddle or make it difficult to hold properly. Now, let's walk through some key steps to safely and effectively help children cross the street. First, when you arrive at your station, take stock of the area around the crossing location to make sure that you have good visibility of oncoming cars and that there are no hazards for pedestrians who will be crossing. Check your station for anything that could pose a danger to children or make it harder for drivers to see children. Look out for uneven or damaged sidewalks, potholes, overgrown bushes or trees, faded or missing signs or crosswalk markings, inoperable traffic signals, construction projects, illegally parked vehicles, or vehicles within 20 feet of crosswalks. This includes your car. If you drove to your crossing guard station, don't park your car at or near the crosswalk. Your vehicle could reduce drivers' visibility. Report any issues that you find to your supervisor. Always stay focused on safety and reduce distractions while maintaining a professional attitude. While on duty, you should not smoke, use a cell phone, read, sit, engage in conversation with parents or students, or eat or drink, not even a morning cup of coffee. And be professional. If a driver repeatedly demonstrates aggressive or illegal behavior, continue to behave professionally towards them. Make notes on the vehicle
and report it to your supervisor or law enforcement. Although each crossing guard station is unique, there are some common steps to follow at any location. First, assemble children on the curb and ask cyclists to dismount from their bicycles. They should stand about 3 feet from the street. Use your knowledge, experience, and judgment to determine the appropriate time to cross the street. Instruct the children to wait on the curb and enter the crosswalk with your stop paddle raised while making eye contact with approaching drivers. Ensure that traffic in all lanes has stopped. Take your position, standing where you are best placed to communicate to drivers that they need to stop. Scan to make sure vehicles do not start to move through or turn into the crosswalk. Call to the children to start crossing while keeping the stop paddle raised. Maintain your position while the children cross through the intersection, continuing to scan for potential conflicts such as vehicles moving into the crosswalk, new children arriving, or children who have veered out of the crosswalk. After the children have crossed, return to the curb, keeping your stop paddle raised the entire time. Do not signal vehicles to move ahead. When you have returned to the corner and lowered your stop paddle, vehicles will move ahead because you are no longer controlling traffic. Every crossing guard station will vary. Procedures will differ based on the number of lanes, the position of the crossing, the presence of traffic signals, and other conditions. No matter the intersection type, crossing guards must always use caution. The Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles states that drivers must always yield to pedestrians in the roadway. Drivers of vehicles must follow rules at all intersections. Remember, pedestrians and crossing guards must also observe traffic signals. Crossing guards have to be familiar with many types of intersections. An intersection can be either controlled or uncontrolled. A controlled intersection includes a stop sign, a yield sign, or a traffic signal, while an uncontrolled intersection has none of these. At both controlled and uncontrolled intersections, legal crossings can be marked with painted crosswalks or unmarked. Students should be encouraged to cross at, and school crossing guards should be positioned at, controlled intersections with marked crosswalks when possible. Marked crosswalks indicate preferred locations for pedestrians to cross and provide a visual cue for motorists to yield right-of-way to pedestrians, even at uncontrolled intersections. However, sometimes controlled intersection crossings are not available or are not the most direct path for students, and uncontrolled mid-block crossings become necessary. At these locations, the presence of a marked crossing and crosswalk signs may help crossing guards facilitate a safe crossing. If you are at a mid-block crossing without traffic controls, always wait to find a gap in traffic that allows you to create a safe crossing. In a multiple lane intersection, there is more than one lane of traffic in each direction. In this type of intersection, you will need to take additional precautions. A multiple threat occurs when one vehicle stops at the crosswalk and reduces the visibility of the next driver. Do not assume that the second driver will stop. The driver's view of the crosswalk and any pedestrians in the roadway may be blocked. Sometimes 2 crossing guards are needed at multi-lane intersections to ensure the safest crossing environment. At signalized intersections, you will be using the traffic signal to determine when to cross the street. Wait for the red light and use caution for turning vehicles before entering the intersection. It's a good idea to familiarize yourself with the operations of the traffic signal and functionality of that intersection. Some signalized intersections also have pedestrian signals. When the pedestrian signal changes to a flashing red hand, pedestrians already in the crosswalk should continue crossing the street. Any pedestrians not already in the crosswalk should be instructed to wait on the corner until the next walk phase. Keep in mind that on roads with higher speed limits, cars are moving faster and require more time and distance to come to a complete stop. On rainy or foggy days, drivers may not see you and may not react as quickly. Drivers also may not be able to see you due to sun glare at dawn and dusk. According to the MUTCD, crossing guards are not to direct traffic, but rather to control traffic by standing in the roadway, indicating that pedestrians are about to cross. What is the difference between directing and controlling traffic? Directing traffic can be in the place of existing traffic signals. For example, a police officer might direct traffic around a crash. Controlling traffic is a way to help enforce existing traffic laws. For example, vehicles should yield and stop at a crosswalk when a child is present. You are helping to enforce this law. What if there is an emergency or a crash? All emergency procedures should be established with your supervisor. If an emergency does occur, such as a pedestrian being hit by a vehicle, call 911 and try not to move the injured person.
Thank you for taking the time to review the responsibilities and procedures for crossing guards in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. As a crossing guard, there will be days when the weather is especially hot, cold, or wet. You will be faced with drivers that are in a rush to get to their destinations. There will be days when your job is difficult, but there will also be days filled with children and parents who are grateful for your service and understand how valuable you are to their community and to their child's safety. Thank you for taking on this vitally important role. Thank you for keeping our children safe.
So I just want to point out one thing, and we might talk about this a little more later. We will emphasize some of the really key points in this video that we want to make sure we all pay attention to. But the one thing is in terms of signaling. So one hand signal is to stop traffic. Right, so what we don't want to do is no signaling, because what we've come to understand is that drivers could misunderstand and think that means it's okay for them to go. So you can do this to keep them at the curb until you're ready for them to cross. If you're going to give them any hand signals, so this is traffic crossing, and this is just to hold the students at bay. And then when it's time to let them know, it's verbal. You tell them it's okay. So that's the difference between what Worcester is doing and what the state program. So now I want to turn it over to Robert Pizzella, who's the school safety director.
Thank you, Lynn. Good morning, everybody. Now we're into afternoon. So, thank you for coming to the training. I know we haven't had one in a couple of years because of the COVID. We were shut down for years, you know. And then when we came back last year, we were kind of like in the middle of trying to get everybody going again. So it's been a couple of years. So this year, as you can see, for those of you who've been to previous trainings, this is a much more comprehensive training because number one, your job's very important. Number two, your safety is very important. And I want to say that your job I admire you for what you do every day when you're out there in the streets and in the crosswalks, because I've been around a long time, and every day, and when I'm roaming the city streets, I bump into, not bump into you, but I see a lot of you out there. And I know that, you know, whether it's snowing, raining, you just got a number of students and families you're crossing every day. It's a big job. And so we just want to go over some basic things that you already know. Teresa reminded you as far as signing in. The most important thing, you want to get paid, you got to sign in. You have to let you know the principal know whatever the procedure is, and it usually is a procedure that you have to sign in either by phone or go to the school and sign in that way. That's the first important thing, so you get paid. Secondly, as you know, if you're not going to show up, the principal, by you not signing in, will know that. If you don't call in and say I'm not coming in, they'll know that. So we need to get a substitute within the school building if we can, because right now, substitutes, crossing guards are very hard. We don't have a waiting list. We wish we did. So your job is equally important on top of everything else you do to make sure you let that principal know that if I'm not going to come in, I need to let them know. And of course, these are the two biggies for equipment. The vest, right? In addition to the paddle. And I don't know, I should have asked this last time, but I think Sarah's responsible from Human Resources for distributing the paddle and the vest to you. So if you don't have one, then you just go down to Human Resources at 20 Irving Street, and that's how you'll get one. As far as putting the vest on, if you go to school in, August 29th we open up, if you go to school on August 29th, you have the right size, it's gonna go on nice because you don't have any coats, right? Wait till fall comes in the winter, then you're gonna find yourself wearing 1, 2 layers of clothing. So we always suggest to you, get a bigger size, even 2W for that matter, 2 wide, because when you put your coat on, you put this over, you're gonna wanna have enough room in there, right? So that's also very important, because they're gonna go on the outside, you can't cover, that has to show at all times. Cones and signals, okay. I don't know who knows what you have already for this coming school year, but at most crosswalks, we have tried our best to get everybody one of these signs. This is the new sign that I purchased a few years ago, okay? For those of you who don't have it, we've had orange cones in place of that. In addition to that, because some of your schools have very high volume traffic, and I know you're looking for a couple of barriers as far as to let the incoming traffic see, what's going on in the crosswalk, so all that's interference. But we want to put one of those yellow crossing things at every school. So Paul Comerford's in the back of the room. Paul's been with the public schools for a few years now. Paul's assisting me in the school safety office. So he's going to be going around. Once your school opens and you're working, he's going to go around. He's going to do an inventory of every crosswalk and where the crossing guard is stationed. And so if you don't have one of these, he'll be responsible for putting it down and we'll get it to you. So it's going to be a couple of weeks once the school year is up and running. It's not going to be right away for those of you who don't have them. And he'll be doing a couple of other things that we'll talk about in a minute. Okay, as you saw in the video, and Teresa Lynn went over it a little bit as far as the most important thing that I can emphasize today is your safety when you want to get into that crosswalk and you want to cross students and families, okay? You know, common sense, that when you're on the sidewalk, and especially a lot of you are in 2 4-way lanes of traffic, it's pretty dangerous out there. It is. So we want to make sure before you enter into that crosswalk that you scan the area, oncoming cars, as best as you can, to where when you step in, you know you're stepping into a safety crosswalk, very safe crosswalk, okay? That's the most important thing. Anything that can make it harder for drivers to see children, okay, we want you to scan prior to the school day, and that's where Paul will also be of assistance. He's gonna go around to the crosswalks and see if there's anything that we could help you get rid of, like branches and things like that, that you can't do, all right? So Paul's gonna go, he's gonna do an inventory of stuff that maybe he could see to help us get that out of there to improve your visibility and when you're crossing kids, okay? Damaged sidewalks, potholes. Mr. Kempton will tell you, he's here to present, he's from the traffic and engineering department. We can't fix some of these things overnight, okay? Raised sidewalks and things like that. We'll be aware of them, we'll document them, we'll do what we can to try to improve some things. That could be a hazard. We'll do the best we can, but some things will take some time. Other things we can hopefully do right away. Icy surfaces, fallen branches. I know a lot of you have issues with snowbanks, high snowbanks. The city of Worcester contracts, and he'll bring it up, contracts with city plows. They're supposed to do certain things to not end up having snowbanks this high. We have a facilities department. We will ask our facilities department in some cases if they can come and break down some snowbanks to where it's not going to obstruct you going in and out of the crosswalk. So that's another thing that Paul will also be during the winter months taking a look at, okay? Faded or missing signs or crosswalk markings are okay. Faded signs, if you need another one, call Sarah. Make arrangements to get another sign. Crosswalk markings, and Mr. Kempton will tell you this, and they have us, you talk about it, there's a list. We are a priority. School zones are a priority, okay, to make sure our crosswalks are are new, and he'll tell you how often they repaint them, okay? But that's also a priority, have a nice, clean, visible crosswalk. Scanning for gaps in traffic, I just talked about that. You know, common sense. I mean, you know, most of you are in very high volume traffic areas, okay? And you have to make a conscious decision before you step into that crosswalk. Look left, look right, okay, before you cross not only yourself, because you have the lead, but also the students and the staff. So you gotta be vigilant, ongoing vigilance. And you know this, I'm telling you what you already know and what you already do. Ongoing vigilance, making sure every time I try to get in that crosswalk with my students or prior to my students coming into the crosswalk, I have to scan both sides. Because like, once again, you're having two-way traffic, four-way traffic, and that's very important for you to do.
And so that was on a mid-block, but on a corner, you also have to, on the corner in the roadway, look over your shoulder in case somebody's coming around the corner.
Mhm. Streets with 4 more lanes. Is anybody on a street with 4 more lanes? Oh, well, at least 4 lanes? Yeah, where are you at? Chandler, I said earlier. Anybody from Chandler? So you're in you have another crossing guard too, right? Don't you have 2 at Chandler? I thought you had 2. Excuse me? Oh, really?
You said one down the street.
Okay, but I thought you had 2 right in front of the school. You don't? Okay. Oh, okay, all right. So you are one of the most heavily trafficked roads in the city, and you do a fine job, you really do. So when the vehicles in one lane stops, do not assume that the vehicles in the other lane stops. So I'm sure you've been in situations where, especially when the buses come in, you're in that lane, you're trying to do your job here, but then the traffic's coming over there. And so they don't, and I'm sure you have a lot of violators.
Mine is controlled.
Okay.
I got mine on that.
Okay, you have a traffic light here too, right? Okay, Mr. Kempton will talk about that. So, but for your own safety, we want to make sure when it's 4 lanes involved, that's a heavy traffic area, so we have to be very careful. Specialized intersections, I'm gonna wait and let Mr. Kempton talk about that. I know every one of you have had students bring bikes, scooters, or skateboards to school. So we ask you to ask them to where, please don't ride your bike or your scooter or your skateboard through the crosswalk. We want them to walk. And if they're non-compliant, you know, I know you probably know some of these students and parents. I mean, I know you could say as a friend, if you're a friend to them, like, you know, come on. You know, if they start giving you a hard time, you just gotta get it to the principal. Let the principal deal with, you know, unruly parents and students. You don't have to deal with that. I know, like I said, you know some of them, and you know, you want to let them know as a friend, a parent, friend, that, no. After they say they're non-compliant, just send it to the principal's way. Paddle height, okay. So, and we might address this again. So here you are, okay? We would like for children to be 3 feet into the sidewalk, away from the sidewalk, you know, the streets here. We would like kids to be back, so, because if you're on the sidewalk and they're right behind you, that's gonna be a problem, okay? So we just asked if they can get back until you get your scanning. Everything seems to be safe, right? This is in an uncontrolled sidewalk where there's no lights, right? Sign, you going. They say shoulder height. I know some of you do this, which is equally effective. I know sometimes this is more effective. When you get in that crosswalk, and then in the middle of the crosswalk at all times. That is where we want you to be stationed. So where you can do this, okay? Now in the video, you can see them, to the students, doing this. You can do that, but we do not want you to do this, because that could be a misinterpretation from the driver that you're telling them to come. So if you do this, we want you to all verbally say, okay, you can come now. So once again, and then you tell me if I'm missing something, you scan, make sure your safety is safe, because the cars, all right, no one's coming, uncontrolled sidewalk, right? No signals. Put it up there, you can do this, or you can do this. Come in. middle of the sidewalk, middle of the crosswalk. You can do that if you want. Then, when it's clear, okay, kids, come on. They go all the way through, they're on the other side, and then you can just do this. You don't say to them this, you don't do that, you just do this. Get back on that sidewalk, and then it's their time to go.
Right, and then we don't want to wave the paddle around, and we just want to keep it steady, keep it facing the traffic. Okay.
Once again, never argue with parents, students. However, your biggest violators seem to be what? Cars, right? Non-compliant motorists. We're being nice saying that, right? Non-compliant. I mean, we have some very, very difficult people, road rage, right? They're gonna do what they wanna do, and you're not gonna bother their day. They're gonna go about their day because they're late for work or whatever else. So you all been victims. I know you have. I even have to know where you're stationed. You all been victims, and we know that we can react. Anybody can react when someone's jeopardizing your safety. Never mind elementary school children, and we do react. So we want to remind you to try to act professional as best you can. If somebody is violating your personal space in the crosswalk, in addition to they almost hit somebody, then we just ask that. If you can try to remember the car, who it is, then just keep it up here. Stay in your job, all right? Despite, you get anxious about it. Stay in the job, complete the task for the day, and then get it to the principal, okay? Because it's still gonna be fresh who that person was if you don't know them. Sometimes you don't know who they are, and say, it was parent so-and-so, or so, all right? It is their responsibility to help you, identify it, and then bring it to my attention, and then I will bring it to, in most cases, the Worcester Police. And they will be up there the next day, hopefully. We ask them, to go up there the next day. We need to help you, especially on things like that, non-compliance from very angry people that don't care about your safety, never mind the students and families. Crosswalk, cars. I know the most convenient thing to do when you come to work is let me park right next to the crosswalk. We ask that there's no cars 20 feet from the crosswalk. So if you're in 20 feet, here's the crosswalk, you're within 20 feet, parked, or whoever else, then that's a violation. So we don't want that to happen. So number one, your car, we don't want to see it parked within 20 feet of a crosswalk. And if you see another car that's doing that, and you know who they are, I would just ask once again, you can ask them politely, because you know a lot of parents, you know what they do, right? They jump out of their car, they'll park anywhere, and then they'll walk their students in. And you say to them nicely, I'm sorry, you can't park there. I don't care, I'm parking here. Well, we want to react, right? But we can't. We have to try to be professional in all our affairs, right? And we got to remind the principal, especially if you know it, so-and-so, parent so-and-so is clearly doing something they shouldn't be doing, and tell them what it is. Let them deal with it, and then if we have to go to another authority, then that's what we'll do.
Can I address this?
Yes.
Okay, so in the video, you saw when there was a problem, the guy was writing out, he took the back of his paddle and he was doing this, he was writing things down. Our concern in this situation, I can let you take it from here, is we don't want it to interfere with your duties. The other thing is if they see you had a great thing where you say they know where you are. I'll let you take it from here.
Sure.
But that's, yeah.
And Officer Rutherford, he might be back, he might not, but Officer Rutherford also reminded everybody to where, when you see a motorist, I mean, you do. You want to take out a pen if you got it in your back pocket, a piece of paper, or on the back of your thing here. Write down who it is. The license plate number. We can't have you do that. We can't have you do that. I mean, we would love to get that person the very next day to where the police can do something about it because they came through your crosswalk when kids were crossing. Are the lights there and they're going right through? You can't do that. We just ask you once again to we try to remember to the best of your ability how this person, what they did, how they violated, and get it to the principal, because as Officer Brothers said, because that person's gonna know where you are the next day, right? they know you're going back to that crosswalk the next day, and if they see you reporting, and I've had a few calls, I've had a few crossing guards, and I didn't get angry, I just said you can't do that. That did take license plates, and there were some heavy encounters, confrontations after, because the person pulled over the side of the road and said, did you just take my, they took a picture, did you take a picture of my car? And they, you know, yeah, I did, and so it went back and forth, and fortunately, it didn't end up in anything of any type of incident, but the fact that he got out of the car and he confronted the crossing guard, that was not good for anybody, for both sides. So once again, as the officer said, for me to remind you, you already know this, they know you're gonna be the next day. And we don't want that to end up in any type of negative incident. We already went through this?
Yep.
I mean, I'm not gonna tell you something you most importantly know. If you're in the crosswalk and there's an accident of some sort, God forbid, and we've had it, student gets hit by a car, crossing guy got hit by a car, I mean, even though we're asking you, if there's an incident that does not affect you directly, but a parent, student, or just somebody crossing the street, or there's an accident right near the crosswalk, then we just ask you, you gotta still stay focused on the kids, right? If it's horrific, then of course, you're gonna do what you have to do to respond to your surroundings. But we want you to know that if there's some type of distraction, public safety coming down, there's 2 or 3 cruises, you know, you have to obey the rules of the road, which is get out of the way. But common sense tells you, I gotta make sure the students and anybody in this crosswalk is true, all right? And if there's a person that's down in the crosswalk due to some type of, say, cardiac arrest or something, Good Samaritan law, help that person, right? But once again, just be aware who's crossing during the time you're responding to the incident. We don't want anybody else in a situation to where their safety is also affected. And then, of course, you notify the principal. I hope all of you have a relationship with your principal. In some cases, it's the assistant principal. You know, the assistant principal will tell the principal. As long as you're interacting with the administration on a regular basis, including the sign-in process, then that's we just want to keep it in the pipeline. Because you go to them, if they can't resolve it themselves, then they come to us. I go to the city in some cases, and then we try to collectively resolve the problems. Report any concerns or incidents, I already covered that, all right? In regards to these things, it all depends where they are. The custodian in most school buildings is very, very cooperative. He or she will be the ones that will take this out in the morning and bring it in the afternoon. Sometimes they leave it right there overnight. And I honestly don't have a problem, except it all depends where they are. I said to the other group, anybody here from Grafton Street? Okay. You know the thing that's been in the middle of the road there? Cutler and Grafton? I think it's 3 or 4 times already. Because, you know, people just, in those types of intersections will, you know, like I said to Tom Tony, I said, Tom, can you please ask the custodian to bring them in the morning? I take it out and bring it back. And so, unless it's a low traffic area, I don't mind if they keep it overnight, because it also helps the city motorists, you know, to say to, you know, slow down. But, so, like I said, Paul's going to do an inventory to see who has these. But for now, the custodian is responsible for taking it in and out. In some cases, I know the principal does it, but it's a custodian. Unless it's far away from the school, then that's not in their contract to go down the street and take it. So we'll do the best we can to make sure that you don't do it, that somebody else does it.
So that's it.
Okay, Jim Kempton from the Department of Public Works. He's been in our city for years. Jim knows the rules of the road very good, and he's going to talk to you.
Good afternoon. So my name is Jim Kempton, Acting Director of Streets and Sanitation. Started with the city in 1997, so yeah, 25 years ago as a grade 3 traffic engineer. One of my first assignments was to inspect and supervise the pavement marking crews. Most of the crosswalks in the city are now contracted. Thermoplastic, we do them at night, so I was working Sunday night through Thursday night, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Try to do them under the cover of darkness where there's obviously no traffic, so we can get in and get out. There are federal guidelines that traffic engineers have to abide by, and one of them that was mentioned in the video was the MUTCD. That's the Federal Highway Administration document, and it's a very thick document. It's got all the standards for signs and signals, everything that the city uses, all the crossing signs. This is just a chapter on school areas. On the state level, Mass DOT has issued, this is from 2021, the procedural manual for speed zoning on state highways and municipal roads. So establishment of school zones falls in this document here, which involves the speed limit of 20 during certain times for school arrival and dismissal. On the city level, the city maintains the list of all the school zones, the list of the school crosswalks, and the time zones that are associated with them. So we have all these documentation, try to keep everything up to date, try to keep everything in good shape. Signs go missing, signs get faded. The traffic sign shop is part of street operations, so that falls under my purview. If there's any faded signs that get knocked down, customer service takes it, we'll go replace it. All right, next one. This is just taken from Mass General Laws, MGL Chapter 89. So as any pedestrian is attempting to cross the roadway, yeah, traffic has to yield or stop for you, right? So even without any traffic control, no signals present, you're attempting to walk across the street, traffic has to yield to you. Where you are providing traffic control with the paddle, it's different situation. They are now required to stop, but without anything, there's still a law in the books that they can't come into your crosswalk while you're in it, or attempting to get halfway across the road. Right. This is a typical, they call a mid-block crosswalk. This one's on Lovell Street, Columbus Park. It's within, some of these may be within a school zone. They may be signed as a school crosswalk. They may have the standard pedestrian crosswalk sign on it. May or may not have the cones, the pedestrian truncated dome pad that's on the other side of the street here. We've been applying this type of crosswalk since 1997. It is thermoplastic. Most of them are 8 feet on center, so a 9-foot crosswalk with 3-foot on center rungs of the ladder. That style first started with school crossings and elderly crossings, where most standard crosswalks were still the 2 main bars. Now every crosswalk in the city, unless it has some kind of special concrete treatment or something, is going to look like this, or very similar to this. When these are new, because they are thermoplastic, it is not paint. It's not sprayed down, it is laid down, it comes out a chute, pushes a cart, comes out at 400 degrees, lays down, takes about 2 minutes to dry. Also has glass beads in them for retroreflectivity, and you can definitely see that at night, the day after some of these are brand new. But they do get slippery. So the glass beads, if they don't settle into the plastic, you can slip on them. When they're relatively new, when you get rainy days, they can be slick. So be aware of that. I mean, nothing beats them for visibility and longevity, and try to keep the crosswalks looking as new for as long as we can, but just be aware that when they are new, they can be slick. All right. This is the roundabout not far from Columbus Park, so Lovell, Maywood, etc., Ferdinand. This one's controlled by yield and stop signs at this circle, and there's crosswalks across all 5 legs of it. So typical example of a roundabout with yield control, stop control, and pedestrian access. It could be any Y intersection, T intersection. You're going to find yield signs, stop signs, traffic circles, roundabouts, etc. throughout the city. So obviously, be aware of which one you're assigned to. This one I would think would be the one that everybody has questions on. This is a relatively new product. Federal Highway Administration approved use of these rectangular rapid flashing beacons, so RRFBs we call them, in 2018. So that's when the first one started showing up, and since then we've got about 80 sets of these things citywide. These do provide pretty much instant gratification. When you push that button, it starts to flash. It flashes amber, not red, and I'll stress that because it's not a traffic control device. It's only a pedestrian warning device to let motorists know that someone here wants to use the crosswalk to get across the street. It is not designed to stop traffic. It will not flash red. The feds will not allow it to flash red. Amber flash, warning device only. You push the button. Usually you're going to get about 20 to 30 seconds. I think we've been setting most of them at 25 seconds to provide a clearance or awareness of a pedestrian in the area. Traffic won't stop immediately, so there's a few seconds there that you'll have to obviously stop traffic and get the pedestrians across the street. But so most of them are set at 25. And there will be more of these. I think the first crosswalk I showed, Lovell Street at Columbus Park, is slated to get one in the next year. And there's 20 other sites, I believe, that are in the pipeline to get installed. Typical signalized intersection, fairly wide one. This is Main and Holland. So it's a full signal with pedestrian indication. I picked this one because you'll see that there's a median island, but the crosswalk doesn't have any pedestrian refuge in that island. So this one is timed to get you from curb to curb. If there's a median that has pedestrian refuge and another signal and a button in it, there are several, especially in a downtown area, where the timing gets you halfway across the street, and then you have another button to press to get you the rest of the way. This one, however, will be timed to get you completely across the street. Basically, and the next slide goes into it, but the clearance zones are set up for the width of the roadway and average walking speed. Right, so this is a pretty standard sign. You may or may not see this on some traffic signals in the city. Most of the ones that we have, the sign is integrated into the push button, and it says push button to cross street. This one's also acceptable, but this sign is quite large when you're trying to put it onto a pedestrian pole. It's going to go solid walk for about 4 to 7 seconds. That's it. It gets you started. It does not get you completely across the street. The critical interval is the flashing don't walk. So that gets you the rest of the way, assuming that you started as soon as the walk light came on, or it'll still get you across the street if you started walking when the walk changed to the flashing don't walk. You just stepped off the curb, the light changed, walked to flashing don't walk, you still have enough time to continue on. You don't have to immediately jump back to the curb. So it's average walking speed of 3.5 feet per second. There are some that were timed under the previous guidelines, because guidelines are always changing. This MUTCD is from 2009. The previous one was from 2003. There were some changes, which also included the fluorescent yellow-green signage. And signal timing at the time was based on 4 feet per second, but could allow 3.5 feet per second in areas that had children or elderly. Slower walking speeds were expected. Some of these in the city will also have the countdown pad, so it'll clearly tell you that you have 18, 13, 15 seconds of flashing don't walk. Pros and cons to that. It is good to know that I have plenty of time to get across the street at my current walking speed. I got plenty of time, I don't need to rush. Downside, and we saw it as soon as we had these, the first intersection in the city was Main and Front and Pleasant, and when it got down to the last 4 or 5 seconds, people would fly across the street because I only got 4 seconds, so I got to walk a lot faster or run to get across that way. Not exactly what it was designed to do, but interesting side effect. Plenty of time, so that interval is long enough to get you across. When it starts going solid, don't walk, don't start crossing. Obviously, if you walked a little bit slower than average, continue on your way, but don't start. The last one on this is push button to cross, because different intersections may have buttons that only control one leg, two legs, or all four legs, so you may or may not see that type, or it'll tell you which street you're expecting to cross.
It's this one.
So this one is, this one's basically the two types of pedestrian phases that you will find in the city. Most of the ones on the left, I believe, majority of downtown. But you got to keep traffic moving, but you need to provide some pedestrian interval where they can, as the New York style would be, cross on the green, not in between. So you're crossing this street while this road has the green light, basically. So the pedestrian phase is the dark blue, vehicle phases are the green, so you do have some turning traffic. They have to yield to the pedestrians. But that walk and don't walk will come on at the same time as that main drag green light. The one on the right is the exclusive pedestrian phase. That means you push the button. I'll also stress that the interval will only come in and always come in where it's designed to come in. So you push the button once, you won't get instant gratification on most signals. You might have it timed right, that you got it and 5 seconds later you get the walk. But you may be waiting a minute because it's going to come back around where it's designed to fit. It only goes in one order, one way. You don't push it 10 times and suddenly, oh, you're more important, and it skips. It won't work that way. So when it does come in, an exclusive, everybody has a red light. Pedestrians have the right-of-way of the entire intersection. So any walks can go. I know that the school will not encourage this move, but as a pedestrian, it's legal to do so cross diagonally at a pedestrian signal that has an exclusive phase like this. Some more basics about pavement markings. Like I said, the crosswalks are usually about 9 feet wide, 3 on center ladder bars. The stop line is placed 5 feet on center, so 4-foot gap between the stop line and the crosswalk. That's where vehicles are supposed to stop. And as far as signalized intersections, vehicles that signals work on detection, most of them in the city. So there's either a loop in the road or there's a camera that's facing you and it picks you up here. It might pick you up here, but if you roll into here, the signal is not going to know that you're here because clearly you should not be stopping in this area. So you'll be waiting all day for this light to turn green if you stop here. Stop there and you'll be good to go. And it keeps enough of a buffer between the vehicle and the pedestrians that are in that crosswalk. School zones. I mentioned it briefly that not every school in the city has a school zone, and not on every street that they front. Some have them on multiple streets. The basics from the state manual is it's got to include a grade from 1 to 8. So therefore, high schools don't get school zones. Kindergartens and pre-K don't get, Head Starts don't get school zones. There has to be a crosswalk within the right-of-way of the school that students have direct access to. And that's what some of these have been established. So when one is established, it's signed with a school ahead. At the end, there'd be an end school zone. In both directions, there'd be a school fluorescent yellow-green tab, speed limit 20, and below that would be a time tab of when that speed limit applies. So in most cases, I think it's 8:30 to 9:30, maybe 2 to 3 in the afternoon. They'll all be posted, and they're not all the same citywide. So different schools have different start and dismissals, yeah. And what to pay attention when you're crossing locations not in a school zone. Obviously, the speed limit wouldn't be 20 on most city roads. The prima facie would be the unsigned speed limit citywide is 30 miles per hour. And even that, requires constant enforcement to keep it moving at 30 miles an hour. So you have to be aware of what vehicle speed is on your street. 30 miles an hour is 45 feet per second, so time runs out quickly if they're moving at you any faster than that. So be aware of how fast traffic is moving and try to establish the gap that you're going to use to get children across the street. All right, is that the last one?
Thank you,
There you
Jim.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
All
you
right,
very much.
thank you, everyone. Take care.
Appreciate it. So Officer Rutherford's not going to be coming for this presentation, but we covered what he did. All right, so Lynn's going to wrap it up, and then we're going to look forward to you having a great school year.
Okay, you guys are awesome. Is there anything else or any more questions? So I just want you to remember the handbook has a ton of information in it, more than what we talked about. And the thing I want to leave you with just pay attention to how children act. They talked about it a little, but could you guys stay with me one more minute? Children do not see as well. They are shorter. They do not understand speed of cars. They think once they get going, they can just keep going. So there's a way in which, your job is to make sure they understand what they need to do, right? They don't see as well, they don't hear as well, their judgment is not as developed. So that's a really big thing. So we want to keep you all safe. If there's any other things that you need, it went down, but feel free to email Rob or Teresa. The principal, they're your portal to figure out, to report things, but they will then contact other departments when we need you to. Okay, thank you.